Hi friends. We are having tech issues. So Vanessa and I are trying to work through our tech issues this morning, this afternoon, wherever you are. We are working through them today. So just know she's coming and hopefully we're here. I can sort of see us. So we're doing a thing. Hi friends. We are And now you can hear that. Okay, so we're gonna see if this works. Okay. Friend. Let's see. Oh wait, you're muted.
Okay.
We're here.
Yay! Finally. It wouldn't even let me join from the link. I had to go to my app, copy and paste.
Oh my gosh, I'm telling you, this is how I know the adversary doesn't want us to have this conversation.
I was just literally going to say the exact same thing. I was like, this is how you know that you're doing something good, because the devil tries to stop you.
Yeah, this is what it is. It's so funny because we tried to go live, like in a way that I go live in my other group for business, and it wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work.
It wasn't having it. And so now we're here and all is peaceful, I think, friend. So everybody, welcome. Say hi to Vanessa. She is kind of like my favorite person ever. You see her in the group on a regular basis because she's awesome and just always has something super insightful to say. How long have we been connected? I feel like we've been connected for a long time.
I think it's been at least a couple of years.
At least a few years, which I really love. And then I was on your podcast, last fall, right?
Yeah.
Has it been like that long already?
And yeah, I know time went really fast.
It went so fast. And she's just a really incredible person. And so I'm really excited that you're here. So why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little about you and how we kind of ended up here.
Okay. Well, my name is Vanessa Luu. I've been married to my husband, Vin, going on 14 years next month. And we have 2 daughters, Cadence and Abby, and they are 9 and 11. And yeah, I think probably at least, well, when I started really getting into writing and, just digging into the word and being like, oh my gosh, I have to share this. That was probably like 3 or 4 years ago. And I didn't know it was going to continue on. But anyway, I spend my time in the Bible and sharing what I know and, what God tells me, the Holy Spirit reveals to me. It's kind of hard. It's like, what do? I do a lot of things. But it's all kind of surrounded around that. Like the Bible, God is the source. And I just do whatever he says. I'm like, all right, cool. I don't know how to do a podcast, but sure, I'll do one. I don't know how to write a book, but sure, I'll do one.
Yeah. Or multiple. That's fine.
Yeah. And that was surprising. And I love when you get to like have those moments, like God gives you moments where you look back, because I don't have those very often. I'm a very like forward, like let's keep going person. So reflection, while I like it, it's not something that just is natural to me, because I'm like past, whatever, who cares? That was the past. Let's keep going. So I had no idea that I was going to have at least 3 books, and I know I have at least 2 more that are going to be in progress real soon. And it's all God. Like it was just him. He was like, yeah, I want you to do this.
Isn't that the best? You're like, oh, okay, I'll just figure it out, I guess. Right.
Yeah. And what's cool is that trusting and doing something scary that you're not an expert in, right, to begin with, just really glorifies God. Because it's like, no, I did not go to school to be a writer. I wasn't a biblical studies major or anything like that. But God was like, no, I'm going to use you. I'm going to use you specifically. And I really love it, because one thing that all the things have in common is connection.
Yeah.
communication. I love connection. I love sharing with people because I think that's how I think that's how we learn and how we grow. And when we're resistant to that, we kind of stay stuck.
Yeah, it's really funny because I was looking, oh my gosh, what page is it on? I was just literally just looking at this where he talked about it in the book. Oh yeah, here we go. When you're talking about Jacob, right? Yes, am I like that? Yes, how he wrestled with God and resisted and all these things. Guys, this is Vanessa's book. It's in my hand. It's a really great book, friends. um, so okay, so can you tell me like what like inspired you to write it? And then I mean, did you face resistance trying to write this book, right? Like internally?
No,
Love it.
there was no resistance on this at all. I
Love
was
it.
really excited. The inspiration for it was through, again, just like my other two books, my own personal revelations, right? Like what God's teaching me.
Yeah.
And what happens, and I say this a lot, the way I describe it is that the Holy Spirit renews your eyes, right?
Yeah.
So like you have a renewing of the mind, and as you continue to renew your mind, you see things totally differently than you did before. So this book was my eyes not being able to not see a huge problem in the Christian culture today, which
Yeah.
is that people don't read their Bible. Um, they say they believe in Jesus, maybe they go to church, maybe they go to a Bible study, but they don't read their Bible.
Yeah.
And I used to be one of those people. So I get it. I get it. And so I can talk to that person. And this book, specifically in the beginning, uh, shows the difference between a believer and a follower, and that there is a big distinction.
Yeah.
And so God revealed to me in a prayer when it was like 8 years ago now. He was like, the answers are in my word. Cause I was like, I don't get this, you know? And he's like, well, they're in my word. I'm like, but your word doesn't really
Yeah.
make sense. Like, it doesn't really make sense. And the reason why I say that is because I think a lot of people, if they're honest with themselves, can relate to that. Like, yeah, there's a lot of things I don't really understand in the Bible. It's kind of confusing. It's kind of dry. I don't really get it.
Yeah.
And so that's what this book is all about, is making it vibrant and alive and
And
connecting.
relevant.
Exactly. And that title was so intentional. Like when that came up, I had a big struggle with the title. I was like, oh my gosh, I have so many ideas, but I don't know which one. And then the relevant old, I was like, oh, that's perfect, because that busts the myth right there. Because I hear it. I've heard it for years. Oh, well, the Old Testament's not really relevant anymore. And I'm like, you're wrong. You're so wrong. Like, and I used to agree with you, but I've been taught, like, God taught me that no, like, it's very, very relevant. And so that's where the inspiration came from. Hopefully that answered the question. I don't know. I told you I talk and go all over the
Listen,
place.
guys, that's how our podcast went. Like we had one topic in mind and then it spiraled into a very different topic and it was really beautiful. So I love these conversations.
Well, yeah, I'm
Um,
always like, let the Holy Spirit flow.
yeah, whatever comes is what is supposed to come. That's my feeling, right? Like, but I think what you said too is really important. Like, you're not a biblical scholar. You're not like, this isn't what you went to school for, right? This is what I'm going to school for, is apologetics. And I just think it's really important. Like, you don't need to go to
Mhm.
school and do
Yeah.
these things to go and share and like figure out what the truth is, right? We just had this, we've been talking about it for 2 weeks in here, like biblical discernment. We're all about it right now. And the things that you're seeing are terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw
Yes.
that video I posted this morning of the pastor
No,
who,
no, yeah.
okay, so it's really funny that, okay, so, and somebody quoted the Old Testament when I shared it. And so I was like, that's such perfect timing because you're coming here. But there's this pastor, and I'm going to put that in quotes very heavily, who changed the story of Lazarus to Jesus encouraging LGBTQ to come out. I can't. I literally watched it like 6 or 7 times this morning because I was like, it was pre-coffee. And I was like, there's no way I'm actually hearing what I think I'm hearing. But when Jesus says like Lazarus come out, he took it to mean like this is a general message for LGBTQ to come out. And I was like, this is really interesting. And somebody quoted the Old Testament in talking about it. And I was like, look how relevant the Old Testament is.
Do you remember what the quote was? I'm just really curious. Were they saying it like against or for the pastor?
Oh, against the pastor, right? Like this is very clearly like wrong situation. Okay. But it was super interesting. I'm like, see, I'm like the Old Testament is still super relevant, right? And there's so much you can learn from the Old Testament. It still points you to Christ, which I think a lot of people miss.
Yes.
A lot of people miss.
Oh my gosh, it's all over the place.
All over the place, right?
Jesus is in the Old Testament all throughout.
Yeah. Which I think is a really big misconception, right? Like, I feel like the biggest one we always hear, right, is this David and Goliath story. And I just saw somebody posted this morning, like, if, God sent you a Goliath, it's because he sees a David in you. And I'm like, this story's about Jesus. It points you to Jesus. Mm-hmm. Jesus is David, not us, right? Yeah. And so there's so much that people are missing. And so I think that's why this book is so important right now.
Yeah. Well, one thing I really want to say as you're talking about the Old Testament is that one thing that you will learn about God, if you go through this book or you study it on your own, is that he is very consistent. And so a big hope for me when people get this book, they go through this book, they're studying in Genesis, is that they begin to understand God's character, his heart, because until you understand him, and now he's infinite, right? Like my tiny mind can't fully comprehend him and never will until maybe, one day when I'm in heaven, then it'll all just make sense, right? Yeah. So I'm not saying I know everything, but I do know God's character. I know what he's for and what he's against. And I learned that from the Old Testament. And so it's not, a lot of people too say that like, oh, well, the 10 Commandments aren't relevant anymore because Jesus has a new covenant. But what you don't understand is that if you follow the new covenant, you will be following the 10 Commandments, because all those things in there line up with love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, body, strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, right? So a misconception is like, oh, well, we can just toss out the Old Testament because now it's all about Jesus. Well, the Old Testament's about Jesus too. And we get to see God the Father's side, like what he brings to the table, what he loves, what he detests. We get to see what he calls justice. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like these things that a lot of people make up because they don't know. Like, well, I think God would. It's like, you don't have to make it up. It's right there.
God tells you what he's going to do.
And the thing is like, he doesn't lie. Every single thing that he says has happened or will happen. He is so true to his word. And you will see that in this book through the characters that and some people like, well, oh, I don't know if you should call them characters. I'm like, they're characters. They're real people. But we can learn so much from their stories that even I myself, I never paid attention to ever. And I use in the description that like this book will take the characters of the Old Testament off the flannel graph and into your hearts, because like me, I grew up in the church since I was like a baby. So I recognize all these names, but I had like certain skews on the lesson of them. And oh my gosh, there's so much more to learn than what we were told. And funny fact, as I was studying through Noah several times, I was like, wait a second. I have always heard this story told that like everyone made fun of Noah and he was scoffed at, and like he tried to tell the people to get on the boat, but no one listened. That didn't happen. Like, well, maybe it happened, but it's not written down.
Right.
So like that alone made me go, wait a second here. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna put those stories away for a second and
Yeah.
look at this with a fresh pair of eyes, because what is God teaching? And for me, the big thing was, yeah, God will, God will punish those who don't follow him, those who are not believers, those who, choose to not be his children.
Yeah.
But he also offers redemption to everyone. So it's not, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy. I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Because I think the biggest thing I always hear is like, well, God of the Old Testament is different than God of the New Testament.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it's consistent.
Yes.
The delivery might be a little bit different, right? And the way
Mhm.
we're conversing seems a little bit different, but he's the same.
Yeah.
Same thing. And he says that, right? I'm the same yesterday, today, and forever. Like,
Yes, he does. And Jesus, while he walked earth, he was the physical manifestation of God, right? But what
yeah,
did he say every single time? He's like, oh, these aren't my words. These are the words of the Father. These are the words of God, meaning like they're not separate.
yeah,
They're not like, oh, well, he's more this and I'm more that. No. He's like, everything I say comes directly from the Father. And so to ignore the Old Testament is a great disservice to your soul. Like it
yeah,
really is, because you get a big taste of who God is and what he wants and
yeah.
how you can love him and how he loves you. Like it's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I think I spend more time in like the Old Testament these days than I do the New Testament, right? Because I'm like, it's bigger and there's so much to work through.
Mhm.
There is I just read the book Women of the Bible Speak, and a ton of it is just going through different women in the Old Testament. And it
Mhm.
is, I'm like, I've never, and I didn't grow up in the church, right? And so
Mhm.
I'm like, for me, I'm like, these things are all like, because even though I didn't grow up in the church, right? Like you know Bible stories. Even if you don't grow up in the church, everybody knows Bible stories. It's you can't like get away from it. And so the things that I thought I knew about these women was vastly different. And so I'm
Mhm.
like, this is so fascinating to me.
Mhm.
It's so fascinating. I'm like a total like cultural and linguistics nerd, right? And so even like just like one word choice, right? And seeing how like even Christians view like one word in the Bible and how that's not actually what it was in Hebrew. And like
Mhm.
and how it makes a huge difference. And I'm just like, this changes everything, right? Just like
Yeah.
really taking the time. And I think that's what your book does a really good job of.
Oh, good.
It doesn't like I said that in the email. I was like, it really goes like verse by verse, and you're really like breaking
Yeah.
things down, and you're like,
Yeah.
this is why this is important, and please think about these things.
Yeah. And I really do. As you go through the book, you'll see I don't really skip anything.
Nope.
Um, because it's all relevant. And
Yes.
there are so many lessons in just a couple verses. Sometimes it's just one verse and I'm like, whoa. And I don't want to just single a verse out and like make a whole thing about it. That's why I take you through in order so that you can feel the story build
Yeah.
and like find those connections that I never knew were there. I didn't know they were there. And now I can't, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I get blown away. And you know how you said you're spending a lot more time in the Old Testament now. This entire pandemic plus, um, I've been in the Old Testament, but I also have been in the New Testament, like kind of side by side.
You're like cross-referencing.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, blows me away daily.
Yeah.
Because, on Instagram, I do the daily Bible reading.
Yes.
I'm going to do it right after this. and I do Genesis, currently Genesis, John, and Psalms. And we've been going in order from chapter 1, right? And just yesterday was a great example of how what I was inspired to say in Genesis totally, or it was no, John, totally connected to Psalms. I was like, that's kind of what I was just saying, wasn't it? And like, I didn't plan that, but God brings all this together. It is very consistent. And I used to think, oh, the Bible's kind of inconsistent, it kind of has contradictions. And that's not true. It's not true. What it is we need to slow down, really care about learning from God instead of just getting through something. It's a mindset change. Because before I'd be like falling asleep, right? And now so much time will pass. Like I was sharing with you this morning, I'm like, oh my gosh, that felt like 10 minutes and it's been like 45.
Right.
Because I just catch these threads, or I look up a word, or I search in a commentary, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. God speaks to me every single day through the Bible. And so I wanted the readers to have that experience. So that's how it's set up. It helps you practice reading the scriptures. It helps you practice seeing new perspectives, new insights that maybe you never noticed before. And it helps you to relate in your own life. Bringing it super duper vibrant, alive, active, just like Hebrews says, right? The word is alive and active, sharper than any two-edged sword. Like, it's so true. It's so true.
Yeah, I really like what you said about like how we feel like, or you hear all the time that there's stuff in the Bible that's contradictory, but like these paradoxes, these contradictions really like force you to take notice and then get to know God's character. Right? Because it's never a contradiction. It just requires more forethought, and it's something God really wants you to pay attention to.
Yes. And in the book, I even share some of my confusions, like I really don't fully understand this, but for now, God's teaching me this through that thing that's like, like something that's just a little confusing. And this is what makes me really sad. When other professing Christians argue that like we don't need to pay attention to the Old Testament because it promoted rape and slavery, and I'm like, you haven't read it, have you? like because here's the thing, just because those things are in there doesn't mean they're promoted or ordained by God, or given the green light by God. That's the point. You need to pay attention. Who's speaking? Who is doing these things? Are they God's people? Are they ones that are after God's own heart? No. And so just because it's in the Old Testament doesn't mean it's allowed.
Right.
And that's another cool thing too, is that God allows in his word for us to see flaws and ugliness and sin and things that are not of him, so that we can discern what we see out in the world. Not of God, of God, not of God, of God.
Right.
Because it's all in there. He doesn't leave anything out. He doesn't just put the shiny, pretty stuff. He lets you see humanity broken and flawed. He lets you see that because he's honest, because he's truth. So good.
I think it's really interesting, right? Because I think about this all the time. Like, the Bible, of course, is full of very imperfect people, right? We're all living in sin. We're living in a broken world. Nothing is the way God designed it, right? Like, nothing. And so to expect to read the Bible and to only see like these very happy, like frolic through a field, I think that's like a hipster Jesus kind of view, right? That he's just like sitting around kumbayaing and like, affirming everything in your life and telling you it's okay, when really these things are in here because it's the reality. And then he convicts you on how these are not of God.
That's right. That's right.
And how to handle it.
if you look at my subtitle, it says illuminating lessons from imperfect people.
Yeah.
And God uses us. None of us are perfect, but
Yeah.
he allows us to be a part of the growth, of the miracles, of the revelations. You know what I mean? Like he
Yeah.
allows that for us, and it's a blessing. And yeah, even from the beginning, Genesis, chapter 3, we're already messed up.
We
We've
already
already
screwed up.
ruined it.
Right.
We've already ruined it.
Didn't take long.
Yeah, it didn't take long. But we get to see God's intention for us,
Yes.
which is to walk with him, do life with him. And that is a huge, huge lesson that the creation story taught me, that I try to remind myself of as often as possible. Because just my personality, I think, oh no, if I'm not being A+ every day, then God's going to be sick of me and he's going to, like, okay, I'm done with you, and so that's not the message that God teaches
No.
at all.
No, I think that's a really good point from the Old Testament, right? And from creation alone. Like God created us to be in relationship with him and with each other. And I think that's a big thing that seems to be missing these days. So
Oh yeah.
oh my gosh. Okay. It's already been a half an hour and I know you have
Right.
things to do and this goes so fast every time. So Vanessa, just tell everybody like where they can get the book and like how they can join you on all the things. And we'll drop the links in the comments.
Okay. Yeah, great. So yeah, you can get the Relevant Old Testament and all my books on Amazon. So I got this one. I've got my Truth and Tools, which I absolutely love, and my You Don't Have to Be Perfect, which was my first book. And you can connect with me on Instagram. I'm at Body, Soul, and Mind Writes, and I read the Bible live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I would love for you to join me. As I said, I read Genesis, John, and Psalms right now until God tells me to change it up. And let's see, I do have a newsletter that you can get, and I send out my weekend recaps, which are just kind of everything we've read, like all my insights on what we've read. And people really like those. It helps with their understanding of the scripture. So you can sign up for that. And I'm on Facebook, Vanessa Luu. Easy peasy. I think that's and I have a podcast.
You do?
You don't have to, You Don't Have to Be Perfect podcast. I have about like 60 episodes.
Yeah. A lot.
That you can check out. And they're awesome. Like I have the best guests. I mean, hello, Ashley was one of my guests. Yeah, and I love the conversations in there. Actually, I can't believe I almost forgot about my podcast because that has been a huge blessing just for myself. Like I'm like, thank you, God. Like, wow, I didn't expect this. Like, it's cool because I get encouraged because I realize there are more people who are like, I don't know, kind of like on the same mission. We know we're not perfect, but we also know we're called by God, and we share our stories, and it's really, really uplifting, I will say.
Yeah, I love your podcast. I don't subscribe to many, but yours is one that I get
Yay!
notifications for. So, thank you just for being here. This was good. I knew it was going to be just a good conversation. It always is when I talk to you. So,
well, it was my pleasure. I enjoyed it, and I was really excited to do it because, I interview a lot, but I don't often get asked to be interviewed, so it's kind of fun.
Oh, well, I'm happy to help. Anytime you want to come in here, like we should do this because guest interviews are starting soon too. And you get to bring your expertise. So you should come and do that.
Got a lot of things we could talk about. A lot.
So much. We should, there's a lot. It should just be a regular thing now at this point because there's so much goodness to talk about.
So much.
Oh my gosh. I appreciate you just so much for being here. You made my whole day.
Oh my goodness. Well, I appreciate you just giving me the space, and it was fun. It was a great time.
Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time, friend.
All right. Take care.